process has their celebration days.
I see.
And this is no different. This is the appearance day of Lord Nityananda. So we can explain about Lord Nityananda during the class. So we'll just, I'll just recite some invocation verses, and then we can start reading. We'll read from the Chaitanya Chaitamrita, and then we'll try and expand on that. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
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 Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
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 Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare.
So this is from the Chaitanya Chaitamrita, Adi Leela, chapter 5, text 13. Mayati te vyapi vaikunta loke Purnaishvarya Sri Chaturvyuha Madhye Rupam Yasod Bhati Shankarshanakyam Tam Sri Nityananda Ramam Prapadye.
Sorry, Maharaj, which verse is that?
It's Adi Leela, 5th chapter, text 1.
Text 1.
Not text 1, text 13.
30 or 13?
1 through. Okay. We'll just go straight to the. We can do the word for word actually. We can try anyway. So if you can say after me, then when you say it, I'll go on to the next part, the translation. This is translating from Bengali to English. Mayatite, beyond the material creation.
Beyond the material creation.
Vyapi,
Vyapi,
all expanding.
all expanding.
Vaikuntha Loke,
Vaikuntha Loke,
in the Vaikuntha Loka, the spiritual world.
In
Vaikuntha
Vaikuntha,
Loka, the spiritual world.
Purna Aishvarye,
Purnashvarya,
endowed with full opulences.
endowed with full opulence.
Sri Chatu Vyuhamadye,
Sri Chaturvyuhamadye,
in the quadruple expansion.
In the quadruple expansion.
Vasudev, Shankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. Rupam, form. Yasya, whose. Ubhati, appears. Sankarshan, Akyam, known as Shankarshan. Tam, to him. Sri Nityananda Ram. to Lord Balaram in the form of Lord Nityananda.
To Lord Balaram in the form of Lord Nityananda.
Prapadye,
Prapadye,
I surrender.
I
I surrender.
Translation. I surrender unto the lotus feet of Sri Nityananda Ram, who is known as Sankarshan, in the midst of the Chaturvyuha, consisting of Vasudev, Shankarshan, Pradyumna and Aniruddha. He possesses full opulences and resides in Vaikuntha Loka, far beyond the material creation. We can say that together. I surrender unto the lotus feet of Sri Nityananda Ram,
I surrender to the lotus feet of Sri Nityananda Ram,
who is known as Sankarshan,
Who is known as Sankarshan,
in the midst of the Chaturvyuha,
in the midst of the Chaturvyuha,
consisting of Vasudev,
consisting of Vasudev,
Sankarshan,
Sankarshan,
Pradyumna
Pradyumna,
and Aniruddha.
and Aniruddha.
He possesses full opulences
he possesses full opulence
and resides in Vaikuntha Loka,
and resides in Vaikuntha,
far beyond the material creation.
far beyond the material creation.
It's just a short report, I should have told. This is a verse from Sri Swarup Damodar Goswami's diary. It appears as the 8th of the first 14 verses of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. Om Gyan Timiram Dasyam Shalakaya Chakshur Manitam Jina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Vishnu Prestaya Bhutaya Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Ucharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Prastajati Chakarane. So this particular verse is describing first 14 verses of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. They explain the tattva of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Tattva means the truth. You have to leave a gap. Shall I leave a gap between speaking?
Just a little slow so that you are
Okay.
able to catch.
So start again. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it explains the tattva or the truth about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we say Supreme Personality of Godhead, and then we think, is there more than one? So, just like in this world, it's not just it's usually more than one person who's in control of any particular business or operation, right? There's one person who's supreme, but he delegates. So similarly, this material creation is designed after the creation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Everything we have here is actually a reflection of the spiritual world. So we can understand the spiritual world is not just something dry or static. It's full of variegated activities. Because what they say in English, they were saying, variety is the spice of life. Even in Armenian, variety. It's boring without variety, isn't it? You know, same thing day in, day out. So in the spiritual, it's the same. But those activities are actually full of sat, chit and anda. They're eternal. There's no death. So therefore they're full of happiness. Sat means eternal. Ananda means bliss. When we're freed from that fear of ceasing our existence, which they call death in this world, then we become enlivened. And then it's also full of knowledge. In this world we're full of ignorance. What do we know? You know, there's a whole universe out there, and somebody will say, there's nothing there. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Everything is in this world, and everything else, you know, there's nothing happening. So this is what we call ignorance. It means that I don't know what's happening, so there's nothing happening. No. So this is just like a big cover-up, because people present themselves as being full of knowledge, but they don't really know anything. Okay, we've got A1, right? Not A1, AI, AI. Artificial intelligence. But, you know, it can't really do much, can it, you know? What can it do? It's only if a living entity starts to manipulate it, switches it on to start with. It can't switch itself on. You know, it can't program itself unless somebody puts the program in first. So, we're talking about intelligence. So, intelligence is very, very limited. Look at this machine. Well, not this one, but this human form. It's so variegated, so it can do so many things. And it reproduces. So what kind of intelligence has produced that? So this is the beginning of knowledge. Knowledge means knowing who we are, what the goal of life is, what the Supreme is, and how to obtain that Supreme. That's knowledge. Everything else is ignorance. And so here we're starting to understand in these first 14 verses of the Chaitanya Charitamrita about how the spiritual world is structured at the very top. And first he talks about the Supreme Lord, Krishna. He comes in the form of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And his expansion, Balaram, who in this particular celebration, we're celebrating his appearance in this world as Lord Nityananda. And now we've just started to explain about Lord Nityananda in 5 verses. And then we'll start in the next verse, we'll talk about another tattva of the Supreme, or truth about the Supreme Lord, Advaita Acharya. Then the rest of the whole of the book, Chaitanya Charitamrita, is talking about these 14 truths, both indirectly and directly. So, Lord Nityananda, I'll just speak a bit about creation, shall I? Not too long. We don't want everybody falling asleep, you know. But we'll talk about creation. You know, there's originally the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. It says Ishvara Parama Krishna. Ishvara means controller. Parama. Ishvara Parama is the supreme controller. Para means supreme. Sat, Chit, Ananda. Eternal, full of knowledge, full of bliss. Anadi Adi Govinda. He has no origin, but he's the origin of everything else. Sarva Karana Karanam. He has no cause. Nothing causes, but he's the cause of everything. So in this one verse we can understand what the qualification is to be as the absolute truth. That from which there's no cause and there's no beginning, and he's the source of everything else and all of the causes. And from him he starts to delegate, he expands as Balaram. This is in Krishna Loka, the highest planet in the spiritual world, Krishna Loka. There's Dwarka, Mathura and Vrindavan. And in that, Krishna, that's in Krishna Loka. And then below that is Vaikuntha Loka. And it says that, if you can follow this, just try to follow it. It's very difficult. But just try and meditate on this. Is that from first expansion of Krishna, right? First expansion of Krishna, they call him Balaram. This is Nityananda. And then from Balaram comes another 4 expansions. And from there, those 4 expansions, another 4 expansions. And all those expansions, they actually control the spiritual and material world. Just like a managing director, he'll delegate to his sub-directors certain parts of his organisation. And then from that, there's the, what they call it, the judiciary department. Judiciary department. You know what judiciary means? Judiciary. Do you know what judiciary is? Judiciary. Danda. Danda, yeah? The word danda, you know what danda means?
Yeah, we know Danda.
Danda, it means if you can't actually change somebody's mind by speaking, then ding. So this is like the judiciary department is where the prison services. So there's one deity who takes charge of the whole material creation, which is actually likened to a prison. We're subjected to so many rules and regulations just to exist in this world. It's not meant to be like that. We're meant to be free. So this is basically, but every so often in the prison, what happens? So many things happen, but if it's the king, or it might be the president or the prime minister, he'll send his representative to, see if he can actually change the hearts of some of the prisoners. What they do, they have parole, don't they? When somebody's behaving themselves and they start to become rectified, they'll go before a board, a committee, and they'll see whether they're fit to go out or not. So every so often the Supreme Personality of Godhead sends his representatives into this world. Like you have in the Christian religion, Jesus Christ, Mohammed, and we have Lord Chaitanya in this case. Sometimes the Supreme Lord appears personally appears in the world to actually try and teach us how to become rehabilitated so that we can live in the spiritual world. So this is the basic principle here. So we're going to talk about the first expansion who appeared only 500 years ago along with Lord Chaitanya, who was Krishna himself, and Balaram. Balaram's the first expansion of Krishna, and in this particular in this incarnation, not in a same incarnation, but this in this form of the Lord, he appeared as Nityananda. So Nitya means eternal, and Ananda means full of bliss. So this is the expansion of the Lord, who is full of complete happiness. And so the Supreme Lord he has to appear in this world incognito, right? He appears in the world incognito. Nobody actually really understands who he is. And gradually he starts to perform activities which reveal his personality and gives those who are interested a chance to hear about the process of devotional service. Okay, so we're going to hear about Lord Nityananda now. He's the first expansion of Lord Chaitanya or Krishna. So actually, Lord Nityananda, he was born in a place called, where was it? Ekachakra. Has anybody been to Ekachakra? Ekachakra is about 90 miles north of Mayapur. It's northwest. Lord Chaitanya appeared in Mayapur. And he appeared as the son of Hadai Oja. Hadai Oja is also a living entity who came from... When the Supreme Lord appears in this world, he appears with his entourage. So that they all actually appear as a group and they perform activities together. So even the so-called mother and father of Lord Nityananda, they're from the spiritual world. And his Padmavati was his mother. And so when Lord Nityananda was born, he was the life and soul of everybody in that village. You know, the thing that really attracts, what attracts us in this world? What are we attracted to? I mean, what's the difference between a dead body and a live body?
Beautiful people.
Not moving. Not moving. Dead
Why?
life body.
That's a good point.
Because no soul inside, right?
There's no soul
Just a
inside.
body.
Yes, so the essence of life is inside. The body is just like a machine. And so we say Nityananda was the life and soul of everybody in that village. And in his youth he used to perform pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We read in Krishna books so many pastimes of Krishna, right? And those pastimes he was actually reenacting. So this is the nature of life, isn't it? People who are born into this world, young boys, young girls, they're interested in imitating the film stars and the soccer stars and so many things, and they play around those things. So Lord Nityananda, when he was young, he was actually spiritually very strong. Obviously he's the Supreme Lord, and he used to perform pastimes which took place in the spiritual world. And when he grew up, he eventually reached 12 years old. And at that point, there was one sannyasi passing by. They say that it was Lakshmi Patitirtha. He's in our disciplic succession. He's the spiritual master of Madhavendra Puri. And Madhavendra Puri is a very prominent acharya in our line. He was the one who introduced Madhurya Ras, the importance of worshipping in Madhurya Ras, and the importance of Srimati Radharani in our disciplic succession. And so from Madhavendra Puri down, one generation later, came Lord Chaitanya. So this Latin, but there's a lot of people said that it wasn't Lakshmi Patitirtha, it was another sannyasi. So we're not sure about that. But anyway, this sannyasi, the nature of a travelling mendicant is travelling to district to preach, Paramahamsa. We travel and preach. And the nature of general society is that if society is trained nicely, they appreciate this person is actually capable of giving us some transcendental knowledge, enlightening us in spiritual life. Just like I suppose in Armenia, the priest is sometimes the people in their congregation, right? No? Not very often. But sometimes the priest will come round, he'll talk to the congregation and try to encourage them in the spiritual life. So this sannyasi was doing that. This is the nature of somebody in the renounced order of life. It doesn't always work, but he was travelling, and he came to the house of Dayananda, the father of Lord Nityananda. And so, you know, Dayananda and his wife Padmavati, they actually looked after him nicely and gave him somewhere to rest, somewhere to stay for a few days, something to eat. And, you know, the nature is that when a mendicant comes, the household may offer him, "Can I do anything for you?" Just say it and I'll actually give you what you want. And so this is the tradition. And so old Hadayojas, Lord Nityananda's father, he asked this sannyasi, "Please ask from me anything you want, and I'll try to actually provide you with it." And so the sannyasi said, "Your son is a very good candidate for being an advanced transcendentalist. So I also need that help. I would like to take him with me on my travels." And so, you know, Adayojas, he was completely shocked. He was so attached to his son. Padmavati, his wife, was so attached to Nityananda. But what could they do, you know? That was the tradition, that when you promise something, you have to give it. And so reluctantly, Nityananda was sent with his sannyasi. Actually, Nityananda, he was fired up, he was very happy about it. But anyway, they went travelling, and then not long after, they were, you know, Hadayojas, he was so overcome by grief, he died, he left his body. But anyway, they travelled for 20 years around India, around different holy places, and the sannyasi was training up Nityananda. And eventually they came to one place called Pandapur. Has anybody heard of Pandapur? It's in Maharashtra. Anybody heard of Maharashtra? That's in India, and it's on the western side. Bombay, you've all heard of Bombay. Call it Mumbai now. Well, that county or part of India is called Maharashtra, and in the eastern side there's a place called Pandapur. It's an area. It's a very holy place, and so this sannyasi and Nityananda eventually finished up there. And it says that this is where he actually met. This is the controversy. He actually met Lakshmipati Tirtha, who was the spiritual master of Madhavendra Puri. And they became very, very close. And eventually they were on pilgrimage together around that area. And he met this other chief disciple of Lakshmipati Tirtha. They called him Madhavendra Puri. And so Madhavendra Puri and Lord Nityananda, they really like one another, they really accept the same interest, and they were always together. But Lord Nityananda, he was very, very humble, and he always saw Madhavendra Puri as his spiritual master. So this is the thing, is that some acharyas say that he was his spiritual master, and some acharyas will say that Lakshmipati Tirtha. Well, that's a technical thing anyway. And at that time, there was, in where Lord Chaitanya was born, he had a brother, older brother, and they called him Vishvarupa. So Vishvarupa, he's got two brothers, one in Ekachakra and also another brother in Mayapur. And this Vishvarupa was actually the same identity as Nityananda. In the spiritual world, it's not like in this world where everything's limited. We are limited to this particular body we have, to the sensations and feelings we get in this body, and the experiences, right? But we don't know what's going on in somebody else's body. We don't know what they're experiencing. But spiritual life is not encumbered by these things. In the Bhagavad Gita, it says, Mayata tamidam sarvam, jagata vyakta murtina, matstani sarvabhutani, nachaham teshva avastitha. Krishna's explaining this situation. He says, by me, in my universal form, all this, by me, my unmanifested form, all this universe is pervaded. All beings are in me, but I am not in them. So what does that mean? It means that we're talking about a corporation or organisation, the CEO, Chief Executive Officer. Is he present in that organisation? Is he present? What do you think? Is he present?
The manager?
Yeah, the CEO is Chief Executive Officer. You know, everybody's working because he's in his, he may not be there, but his rules and regulations, his representatives are there. So his energy is felt, right? Otherwise people would just lay down and do nothing. But through his energy, everything is actually working. This is not a very good example, but he's still a person different from that. So Krishna's like that, the Supreme Lord is like that. His energy is spread everywhere. This is impersonal energy. But he's also an individual. And so the point I'm making is just like the Supreme Lord is like that, and he can spread himself everywhere. The individual soul, like ourselves, when we go back to the spiritual world, we can expand to some degree, not the same degree. We can be more in one place at once. And so this, what I'm talking about is the expansion. Vishvarupa, who took birth where Lord Chaitanya took birth, and was his brother in early life, he'd left home at an early age because he knew his mother and father would ask him to get married. And he wanted to actually become a sannyasi, a renunciant. And so he left and he went travelling. And then he finished up in Pandapur, the same place. And he said that he actually unmanifested his pastimes and he merged into the body of Lord Nityananda. So they became one again. Many examples of this. Why am I explaining all this? Because you know, we have to get out of this idea that everything is actually, everything we can understand and everything we can perceive is reality, and everything outside that is not reality. But what can we understand? There's so many living entities in this room we can't even see. What to speak of spiritual life? Okay. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. You can all come forward, it's alright. Everybody's in the back of the room. Okay. So we got to meeting in Pandapur, right? So then after 20 years, Nityananda going with this sannyasi, eventually he got a premonition, and he started, he became full of ecstasy. His hairs were standing on end, he was shivering, and his voice became choked up, and he was just like in so much ecstasy. And he got this vision that actually Lord Chaitanya had now grown up to be 20 years old. And therefore all his childhood pastimes, and his youth pastimes, boyhood pastimes, they'd all actually finished. And now he was going to start to do the thing which he'd come to the material world for. That was to give Krishna consciousness, to preach to the people in general. And so at that time, Lord Chaitanya was 20 years old, and Lord Nityananda was 32 years old. And so then he knew that he wouldn't join him until he started to do that. And so then he started to work his way across the country, through the jungles, on the beaten paths, and eventually came to Bengal. And so at that time, when he realised where Lord Chaitanya was, he knew he was staying in a place called Nityananda Bhavan. They call it Nityananda Bhavan now, but then they call it Nandan Acharya's house. Nandan Acharya, he was a very great disciple of Lord Chaitanya, and that's in Mayapur. Has anybody been to Mayapur? Where the Janavir meets the Ganga, it joins at the bottom, they call it, is it Hulagat? And just a little bit up there's actually a house there called Nandan Acharya's house, very near the ISKCON temple, just below the ISKCON temple. And so Lord Chaitanya was staying at Nandan Acharya's house, and Nityananda could understand that. And so Nityananda, he wanted to create a really ecstatic meeting. And so he didn't go there straight away. He went and hid in somebody else's house. And Lord Chaitanya could feel that, Nityananda's come, but he's not coming to meet me. And he could understand why. Because when we're separated from somebody, right? When we're separated from somebody, the longer we're separated, the more we're eager to actually see them, right? Somebody keeps dangling something in front of you, then they take it away. Whoa! We want it even more. And so Lord Chaitanya sent, I think it was Haridas Thakur and Advaita Acharya, and they were sent to find him, but they looked for hours all over Mayapur and they couldn't find him. So they came back to Lord Chaitanya, and Lord Chaitanya began to chuckle to himself because he could understand where he was. And so then he personally went with some of his devotees. And that was the first meeting of the two brothers in that house. And from that time on, they were actually always serving together, always performing their devotional activities. There's a lot said about this in the Shastras, about that meeting, but it was difficult for us to understand because it talks about the emotional side of spiritual life. We all have sometimes a feeling of really, when we feel really enlivened because of some information we've got, right, in our lives. Can anybody recall anything like that recently? A time when, something's happened, you've become really joyful, something you really wanted, and it's fulfilled. We can all understand that we feel really, really happy, yeah? At least for some time. But so when they met, they experienced spiritual emotions. And the next chapter of devotion explains about these spiritual emotions. They're so intense and so beyond our experience in this world. sometimes in a kirtan we'll feel a little bit fired up, a little bit enlivened. But these are actually beyond that. They're something very, very, very unusual in this world. And so this particular part of the Shastra explains all these particular emotions they were experiencing. Okay, we'll move on a little bit. So Lord Nityananda, he did that. Eventually, Lord Nityananda, he was called. Lord Chaitanya, he took the sannyas order of life, and in our line they call the sannyasis. They call them trayodashi sannyasis, right? You know the danda. We were talking about the danda. There's three dandas. There's actually four. One means the jiva, but there's body, mind, and words. That the jiva surrenders body, mind, and words to service of Krishna. But Lord Chaitanya, he took initiation from a Mayavadi sannyasi. Can you imagine? And why did he do that? Why didn't he take it from a trayodashi sannyasi? He wanted to show that it's not the externals that matter. Both the impersonalist sannyasis and the personalist sannyasis, they follow the same principles which are given in the Vedic scriptures. And that's the main point. That when we take on an external thing, it should actually impel us to do the correct things. We don't just show externally, but internally we actually practice. And so, that's one reason that Lord Chaitanya took it from a Mayavadi sannyasi. Actually, the Mayavadi sannyasi wasn't a Mayavadi sannyasi. He was actually a devotee, but he was acting in that capacity. Keshava Bharati. And so then when he took sannyas, as a brahmachari under Keshava Bharati, before he took sannyas, they called him, what do you call him? Sri Krishna Chaitanya. Sri Krishna Chaitanya. So that's a brahmachari name, right? That means servant. The brahmachari is a servant. And usually in that line, when they take initiation from a sannyasi, they take the same name as a sannyasi. And his name was Bharati. But Lord Chaitanya refused to take that name. Because the difference between personalist philosophers and impersonalist philosophers is that impersonalists, they want to take the position of God. They say we're all God, and when we become self-realized, we'll understand that we're God. And so they take the same name as the sannyasi, they come to the same platform. And so in our tradition, in the personalist tradition, we're always servants. So he kept the servant's name. He didn't take the higher name. And he was teaching everybody this point, that when we take a position in devotional life, it's not that we become like we're going up the what do they call it? We're not going up the pecking order, But we're actually, externally it may appear that way, but we're actually going down the pecking order. We become a servant of so many people. And so that's our mood, is not to become a master, but to become a servant. So the mood in the spiritual world is what? Das. Das on the das. We're all servants. The nature in the material world is that everybody wants to become master. That's the difference. And so the whole process of spiritual life, first of all, the whole process of religion is sought to reverse that. People follow different paths. But they all should understand that they're trying to achieve the same goal, and that same goal is not to become a master, but to become a servant. And so Lord Nityananda, he particularly taught this, because although he was actually the Supreme Personality of Godhead, first expansion, he was the best servant. He was always trying to serve Lord Chaitanya. And when they met, Lord Nityananda is described as being the Adi Guru. Adi means the first. He's the first Guru who teaches everybody else. And so Lord Chaitanya said, "You're Adi Guru, so we're going to offer arti." And they got the arti paraphernalia, and then Lord Nityananda grabbed the arti paraphernalia and he used it to actually worship Lord Chaitanya. So this is very instructive, is that we don't want to be worshipped, we want to worship. Because actually there's more pleasure in that. There's more pleasure in, as you said, it's in Armenia as well. There's more pleasure in giving than taking.
Sorry, can you repeat?
There's more pleasure in giving than taking. Yeah? It's a fact. If we get more of a taste when we start to give than we do when we take. So Lord Nityananda is the example of the perfect servant. And when the Lord appears in different roles, Lord Nityananda or Balaram, they appear in order to actually perform service. So it says we were talking about the first expansion, Lord Balaram, who is Nityananda. And so from this first expansion comes Shankarshan. And so Shankarshan expands into everything in this material world. Everything we see, even the bodies we have, everything we do is actually the energy of Lord Nityananda. So, he's serving us. He's giving us the facility to live. He's serving Krishna. And so that is why spiritual life is so satisfying. Is that there's no want. If everybody's serving one another, we don't want anything. We get more than what we want. When everybody's taking, there's always a shortage. Take this world for instance. There's so many wars going off, right? I used to travel in Russia a lot. I used to fly over Russia. Sometimes you can fly for an hour and you don't even see a house. Can you imagine that? And the plane's flying at 600 miles an hour, so you can travel for nearly 600 miles and you never see a village. All land which we can grow things. And yet we'll fight over some land in one corner of the world, to try and... What's the point? Is it intelligent? Why is that? Because everybody thinks it should be mine. It says, lust, anger and greed are the three enemies of the person. Lust means to desire something for our own sense gratification. And when we don't get it, we become angry. Or when we don't get it, we become greedy. And we're greedy, and then we become angry again. So all these bad qualities come from this. Thinking this world is for my enjoyment. And we take. So the process of spiritual life is taught by Lord Nityananda. Don't do that. Learn to give. Can you imagine if all these leaders, they just started sharing things? Prabhupada said this world can supply 20 times the food that the world needs. So why is there a shortage? Lust, anger, greed. So those are the three things that Nityananda is teaching us. In Bhagavad Gita it says, everybody must strenuously try to give up these three things. And if the people of the world can learn to give up, then there's no problems. Anyway, so then Lord Nityananda was, he took sannyas, and then they were on the way as a small party to Jagannath Puri. Lord Chaitanya said to his mother that I'll stay in Jagannath Puri, it's not too far away, and then you always get information about me from people who are coming and going between these two places. And so when they were on the way to Jagannath Puri, they came to the Bargi River. The Bargi River, it's near Rimuna. And at that point, Lord Chaitanya, he wanted to go in, there was a temple, a Shiva temple. And so he gave Nityananda his danda. And he says, hold that while I just go and see the deity. And so Lord Nityananda, he started performing kirtan with the devotees. Then he got all of the danda and he broke it into 3 pieces. And he threw it in the Bhagi River. And when Lord Chaitanya came back, he said, can I have my danda? He said, well, you know, before you went to the Shiva temple, you went into a fit of ecstasy, and then I tried to control you, and we both fell on the danda. It broke into 3 pieces. He says, what happened to it? He said, I don't know. So Lord Chaitanya, he feigned anger. He wasn't really angry, and he just went forward towards Jagannath Puri on his own. So there's a lot to learn from this, is that why did he break the danda? They call it, what do they call it? What's that Russian name?
The name of what?
I can't remember. Anyway, so there's 3 reasons he broke the danda. Does anybody know what they are? You know.
Because God is more big than the
What?
Pisanya. He broke the danda because God is bigger than
Bigger than the danda.
bigger than rules.
He's beyond rules and regulations. Why should he carry a danda? Yeah, that's one reason. Is that, you know, a sannyasi will carry a danda to say that, you know, that's his position, that's his designation. But Lord Chaitanya was thinking, why does he have to carry a danda? He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that was one reason. What was another reason?
Sorry, so what was the question? Could you say it one more time?
Lord Chaitanya, Krishna, in other words, spoke to Nityananda, asked for his danda, but he told him he broke it in 3 places. And he did it for a reason. So there were 3 reasons I can remember. And one is, Matthew, what's your name? Jane, oh yeah. And so one reason is that, you know, the Supreme Lord is beyond the rules and regulations of this world. He has no designation, so why should he carry something which designates him as in a certain position?
So he enforced the rules.
Yeah, he's beyond the rules.
He's the creator of the rules, right?
Eh?
He's the creator of the rules.
Yeah. So that's one reason. What was the next reason?
Maybe to show others. Maybe to show others the.
What?
To show other people. To show
He
example.
wants to be an example. He wants to be an example for the rules.
He set that example by the first point he made. It's so that he had an excuse to become hungry. And he could go to Jagannath Puri alone. He just marched off with that excuse. because he wanted to go alone to Jagannath Puri and see the deity personally without any entourage, any people with him.
That's the second reason? Yeah, that's the second reason.
Yeah. What was the third reason? It was impersonal, it was a danda, the impersonalists carry, it was just one danda. And the three dandi sannyas are three. So he didn't want, he saw that he shouldn't be carrying this. He's not an impersonalist. Those are three reasons. Anyway, eventually everybody reached Jagannath Puri. And then Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, he was preaching in Jagannath Puri, making thousands of devotees. And then Lord Nityananda was told by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Lord Chaitanya, I want you to go to back to Bengal. And in Bengal, the same type of preaching that you're doing here. Because what used to happen, the devotees from Bengal, every year at Rath Yatra time, the big celebration, they always come from Bengal and take part in the Rath Yatra festival. But Lord Chaitanya says, don't even come for that. He says it's more important to actually spend your time there. So that's what Lord Nityananda did, and he was very, very successful. It was at that time that one devotee called Raghunath Das. Raghunath Das. Is it working?
Working.
Raghunath Das, he came and to meet Lord Nityananda, and he said, "You're a thief." Raghunath Das, when he saw Lord Nityananda, he stopped. He didn't go close, and from a distance he paid his respects, his obeisances. And Lord Nityananda looked round and saw him. He said, "You're a thief." And so at that point he started running after Raghunath Das. And so he was chasing him, but he was much faster, much more powerful. He caught Raghunath Das and he put his foot on his head. He said he gave him all his mercy. And he says, "You're a thief and now you have to actually pay me back." So it was an instruction to society that I say everything belongs to me. You're using it for yourself. It's your father's money, but you're using it for yourself as well. It should be used in my service. And so he said, "I want you to repay me back." So that's when that Chip Rice Festival started. He said he wanted you to organise a festival in Panahati. And we see there's a picture, we've seen that picture where people are standing in the water, they're still on the land, they're in boats, they're all eating this chipped rice. And that was done for a purpose. People came, and then they were taught about Krishna consciousness. That's the whole purpose behind everything, is so that people get a chance to hear about the reality. And it was at that time actually, Lord Nityananda, although he was described as being, what do they call it? Sahaja Pagala in Bengali. He was a madman. He didn't know what to expect next, And so, he started to become a little bit more sober, and he decided to get married. And he married, that time, a man who could look after more than one wife, he could actually do that. And it was standard. And he got married to Janavi and Vasudha. They were the daughters of Gauridas Pandit's brother. So you can see how everything's related. And Vasudha, he says that these are actually expansions in Krishna Lila. They call them Revati and Varuni. Balaram and Varuni, right? Revati and Balaram. So they were expansions, they were appearing also alongside their consort. And Vasuda gave birth to 2 children. One was called Ganga, the daughter. She was, and the other one was called I can't remember his name. Veerachandra. And so, not long after that, Vasuda, the mother, she died actually. And so Janavi said, I'll take care of the children. So she raised the children. And and eventually she became so advanced in spiritual life. Eventually Lord Nityananda left this world actually. And at that time, Janavi, she was very advanced in spiritual life. And she initiated her own son, Veerachandra. Women Vaishnavas, women Diksha Gurus. Who's I'm not going to that in a minute. But women Diksha Gurus, Janavi. And all the leading devotees at that time, a lot of them took initiation from her. And also Nityananda, Shyamananda, and Srinivasacharya. These were big Vaishnavas, big acharyas. They didn't take initiation from her, but they took shiksha. She was like their guru. So this shows that spiritual life is not based on the body. We're all equal. We're not the body anyway. We're not woman, we're not man, we're not rich, we're not poor. All these external designations are temporary. We're all the same, we're all eternal servants of God. So even somebody who's in a woman's body, if they actually become spiritually advanced, they can teach others. So this is real women's live, right? Equality. It's not based on the body, it's based on the soul. Of course, for convention, modern convention, women have a different material body than a man, so that we have different duties. The man looks after the woman, he's stronger, he earns the money, and the wife spends it. So, is it? So, but they're material designation. So where do we get to now? We've I forgot where we are now. So then Nityananda, he came back from Bengal and spent some time in Jagannath Puri, and then Lord Chaitanya left. He went to South India. For 2 years he was travelling. So Lord Nityananda, he left this world in Ekachakra, not far from Ekachakra where he was born. There's a deity there called Bankim Roy. And on the so his wife Janavi, she's an expansion of Ananga Manjari. And on these deities, on Bankim Roy's right hand side, Krishna's right hand side, is Ananga Manjari. So Janavi, when she left the body, she merged into the deity of Ananga Manjari. And when Lord Nityananda left his body, he merged into Bankim Roy. Just like Lord Chaitanya merged into, what was it?
Chaitanya merged into
Tota Gopinath. The main point, one of the main things we haven't spoken about yet, is that in order to make progress in spiritual life, we have to have, if we want a medical degree, we have to take shelter of somebody who's proficient in teaching medical science. If we want to become an engineer, somebody who's proficient in teaching engineering science, and in banking, any particular activity. So spiritual life is the same. We said earlier that Lord Nityananda is the Adi Guru, the original Guru. So everybody who teaches anybody else about Krishna consciousness, they're acting as a spiritual master. And so we're getting our energy directly from Lord Nityananda. He's given us the intelligence and the energy to actually do that. And that energy is coming through our disciplic procession, through properly serving our own spiritual master. And that then it goes all the way back to Lord Nityananda. So in other words, the Guru is a representative of the mercy of Lord Nityananda. When so the spiritual master is in the like Lord Nityananda is the supreme servant, so the spiritual master is also a servant. And if we always bear that in mind in everything we do, that we're not actually controlling anything, but that we're getting our abilities through Krishna, through Lord Nityananda. And then we can understand, when we get that realization, then we can become servant. That everything is going on by the will of the Lord. That's what Krishna, that's what Lord said. That's what Prabhupada said right at the end of his life. He said everything is going on by the will of the Supreme Personality of God. Okay, so we're going to stop there. Any questions or comments? Oh, we missed Jagai Maharaj. Yeah. When they were in West Bengal, Lord Chaitanya, he sent Nityananda and Haridas Thakur preaching, and so they were going in pairs. And then they had this commotion. They were walking on the street, you know, when there's a commotion, a big crowd gathered. And so I said, what's going on? So they walked over and they were looking through the car, what's happening? They said, oh, it's Jagai and Madai. He said, who's Jagai and Madai? And they said, these are the most, unruly persons you can find on the face of the earth. Whatever sinful activity you can commit, they've done it. And they were both in a drunken state, and they were swearing and shouting at one another. And they were so heated, they were fighting one another, and the crowd were keeping back. And so Nityananda thought, if we can actually deliver these two, that'll be a big effect. People will be really impressed, right? They'll be impressed about this process. And so people don't go near. And so Lord Nityananda, they went towards Jagai and Madai, and they said, please take up the holy name of the Lord. Please chant his holy name and render service. And Jagai and Madai looked at them, and they just started chasing them. So Nityananda and Haridas Thakur, they were running down the road. And eventually, because these two were drunk, they couldn't catch them, so eventually they got back home to Lord Chaitanya and told him what had happened. He said, this is a good idea, he said, we can convince these two rascals, then it'll be good preaching. Go back and try again. And so Lord Nityananda and Haridas Thakur, they went back, and the same petition was there. And I think it was Madai. He just became so infuriated when he heard them preaching to him. He picked up a piece of broken pot and he threw it as hard as he could at Lord Nityananda. And it hit him on the head and blood started to spurt. And word got back to Lord Chaitanya what had happened. And so when Lord Chaitanya heard that, he immediately went to the spot and he called for his Sudasan chakra. And then Nityananda interrupted him. He says, if you kill these two, you have to kill everybody. Everybody to some degree is like them. So we've come to save people, not to kill them. So Lord Chaitanya could understand that. And so then he heard that Madai was going to throw another piece of pot at Lord Chaitanya, but Nitai stopped him. And Jagai stopped him, sorry. And so when Lord Chaitanya heard that, he actually took a lot of compassion on Jagai. He actually said that at that point he freed him from all his sinful reactions. And then Madai, he said, if you free him from all his sinful reactions, why don't you free me? He said, I'll never free you. He said, I don't mind fault, abuse against myself, but when you abuse my devotees, then it's unforgivable. He says, your only hope is if you go back to Lord Nityananda and beg for his mercy. And so there's great meaning in that. If we want to get the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we have to go through his representatives. And we have to go through Lord Nityananda. Who's the most merciful, Lord Nityananda or Lord Chaitanya? Who says Lord Chaitanya? Put your hands up. Who says Lord Nityananda? Put your hands up. Yeah, externally that's the case. So he says that Lord Nityananda doesn't take any offence. So if we take shelter of Lord Nityananda, we can be freed. So this is a very auspicious day today. If we want to make progress in spiritual life, we just ask Lord Nityananda, and he'll reciprocate with that. Yeah? We'll stop here anyway. I'll just see if there's anything else before we go on. Here we are. Letter to Roy. This is our founder, Sharya Prabhupada. This is one letter to one of his disciples, Roy Ram. Lord Nityananda, when he was dealing with Jagai and Madai, maintained the maximum amount of tolerance. The two brothers, Jagai and Madai, committed violence on Lord Nityananda. Even Lord Chaitanya, the author of Shikshastika, became agitated. But Lord Nityananda Prabhu, in the matter, remained calm and quiet and delivered the two rascals to the... We should always try to represent Lord Nityananda Prabhu in the matter of preaching work. Yeah? That we don't become affected by what people say to us, what they do, but we keep our equilibrium. And it's had a big effect if we do that. People become impressed and moved by it. Okay, we're going to stop there. So there's no questions. What we do now?
Question?
Go on, ask a question.
No. One.
Yeah.
I remember ինչ-որ հոգևոր առաջընթաց ունենք, թերապետում ենք որոշակի գիտելիքի, բայց հիմա որ քարոզենք, փոխանցենք այդ գիտելիքը մյուսներին, որ դվիրյալ չի, արդյոք ճիշտ է, թե սպասենք ավելի շատ առաջընթաց ունենանք, ավելի շատ իմանանք, նոր քարոզենք։
We have some spiritual knowledge and we have some progress, but can we already start preaching or should we wait until we get more progress and then start?
We've got some spiritual knowledge, right?
Yeah, we have some spiritual knowledge and some progress.
Yeah.
So are we already eligible to start preaching or
Yeah.
we should wait for?
Yeah. We give people what we know, what we've understood. When Prabhupada was in one, he was meeting some businessmen. He was at this place where a lot of businessmen were. And at this meeting that the devotees had arranged. And in the middle of the crowd, Shama Sundar is one of his disciples. His little daughter, she was called Saraswati. She was only about maybe 4 years old, something like that, 3 or 4. And she got a little doll of Krishna. And she ran on a business and pulled his trousers, you know.
Maharaj, sorry, can I translate? Then you continue. Yeah, so Shama Sundar has a daughter and then?
Yeah, Saraswati.
Yes.
And she ran up to one of the businessmen and pulled his trousers. When he looked down, he says, do you know who Krishna is? And before he had time to answer, he's the Supreme Personality of God. And Prabhupada said, hey, even a child can preach. Prabhupada's spiritual master, one of his disciples, used to bring him, you know, things, articles which were written by his disciples, bring them to him and show them to him to see whether they were good enough to print. When Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur's disciples wrote some article, they would show it to Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur. And Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur, he often didn't even look at it. He said, how many times does it mention Krishna? And he said that 20 times in printing. And once Prabhupada, there was a newspaper article, and it was degrading the ISKCON movement. It was, criticizing. The newspaper article, it was all criticizing ISKCON. And the devotees, they were disturbed by that. So the devotees of Prabhupada said, look, this article. And Prabhupada looked at it and he looked at it and saw that, Krishna was mentioned all through the article. Prabhupada thought this is a very good article. So, once you start practicing this process, automatically you start to preach. People get to know that, you're following a particular path. Yeah.